Have you ever forgiven someone who wasn't even sorry? Ever been told to just let it go, even when your heart was still bleeding? And what if I told you that not everyone deserves your peace? They lied to you. They humiliated you. And then they had the nerve to smile like nothing ever happened, like your silence was permission, like your patience was weakness. But deep down, you knew better. They didn't grow, they didn't transform. They simply got comfortable with your lack of reaction, because to them your calm meant approval, and your forgiveness meant they won. Maybe for the longest time you believed strength was about being endlessly understanding, turning the other cheek, being the bigger person. But here's the Stoic truth. Mercy without consequence isn't compassion, it's surrender. Some people don't learn through kindness. They learn through distance. They grow through silence, through the consequences that echo louder than words ever could. Because if they're never made to feel the weight of what they've done, they'll keep doing it, to you and to the next person, not because they're evil in some cartoon villain way, but because the behavior keeps working. Why would they stop? So this isn't about revenge. It's about clarity, boundaries, dignity. In this video, we'll explore 5 Stoic reasons why it's essential to let people face the consequences of their actions without guilt, without anger, and without looking back. Because peace, real peace, isn't found in fixing broken people. It's found in finally choosing yourself. You've seen it before. They lie, they cheat, they shatter trust, and then return with a shallow apology, a fake smile, and that one line that somehow makes your blood boil. Can we just move on? But here's the thing no one ever tells you. If someone only says sorry after they're caught, that's not remorse. That's reputation management. A truly remorseful person doesn't argue with your silence. They don't pressure your healing. They don't treat your boundaries like obstacles. They sit in their discomfort because they understand that forgiveness does not mean access. Still, we live in a world obsessed with quick forgiveness. Self-help books, podcasts, social media, all preaching the same thing. Let it go. Be the bigger person. Don't carry hate. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to carry hate, it asks you to see clearly. There's a difference between having peace and reopening your life to someone who hasn't changed. Let's be brutally honest. When you forgive someone who isn't sorry, who hasn't done the work, who hasn't earned the right to be in your life again, you're not healing. You're abandoning yourself. And the worst part? Every time you do that, every time you excuse the inexcusable, you teach them something dangerous. It worked. They'll do it again. Because if betrayal still gives them access, if manipulation still earns your sympathy, if their apology is enough to reset everything, why would they ever evolve? Let's be clear. Forgiveness is noble. It frees you from resentment. It's for you, not them. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconnection. Because reconnection without change, that's not healing. That's self-betrayal. And when they say, "Why are you being so cold? Didn't I say sorry? Can't we just go back to how things were?" That's your moment to remember. Trust, once broken, is not returned on demand. In the previous section, we talked about the difference between forgiveness and self-betrayal. Now it's time to face a harder truth. When trust is broken, you're left with only 2 choices. Either rebuild it brick by painful brick, or accept that it's gone for good. And here's the Stoic response. No shouting, no drama, no emotional outbursts, just quiet clarity. You lied. I don't trust you anymore. You disrespected me. I need space. You crossed the line. so I'm drawing one now. You don't owe them a talk. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace, because in the end, enforcing consequences isn't about hurting them. It's about finally stopping the pain you've been allowing within yourself. Let them say you're cold. Let them accuse you of being dramatic. Let them call you unforgiving. That's okay. Only the ones who are comfortable disrespecting you will be offended by your boundaries. And remember, don't judge people by their apologies. Judge them by their patterns. Words are cheap. A tear can sometimes be rehearsed. A well-timed "I'm sorry" can be just another performance. But do you know what never lies? Patterns. It's not the one-time mistake that defines a person. It's the behavior they repeat again and again, even after you've given them chance after chance. Let's bring this closer to home. You have a friend who always forgets your birthday, but fully expects gifts, attention, and fanfare on theirs. A sibling who constantly makes humiliating jokes about you at family gatherings, then laughs it off with, "Relax, it was just a joke." Or a partner who keeps promising to do better, but somehow always crosses the exact same lines, armed with a new excuse every time. Sound familiar? At first, you make excuses for them. They're just stressed. They didn't mean it. They're going through a rough patch. But deep down, a quiet voice begins to whisper, "This isn't an accident. This is a choice." The same choice, made over and over again. And here's the hard truth. They're not slipping. They're calculating just enough kindness to reel you back in, just enough guilt to make you hesitate, just enough distraction to make you doubt your own instincts. It's like standing in the rain thinking it's a storm, only to look up and realize someone's holding the hose. Let me tell you about Evelyn. She's a retired widow in her 70s, gentle, thoughtful, the kind of woman who still sends handwritten thank you notes. After her husband passed, her adult daughter started visiting more often. At first, it felt like a blessing. She helped with errands, drove her to appointments, called every day. Evelyn was grateful, calling it a gift in a hard time. But then the hints began, comments about how hard things have been lately, how much she's sacrificing to be there. And then the favors started. "Can you cover my phone bill this month? Do you mind putting this on your credit card for now?" Every time Evelyn hesitated, the calls stopped. The visits turned cold. Then, after a few days, warmth again, as if nothing had happened. This isn't care, it's a cycle, a pattern. And the saddest part? People like Evelyn, kind, patient, and uncomfortable with confrontation, rarely draw the line. So it repeats. And with each repetition, the emotional toll grows heavier. But then something changed. Evelyn began journaling. She started writing down every request, every mood shift, every subtle manipulation. And in those pages, it became clear. This wasn't a storm of emotion. It was a system of control, and the same applies to your life. The moment you stop making emotional excuses and start looking at the raw data of behavior, you stop being confused, and you start becoming conscious. Let's pick up from where we left off. Protecting your peace doesn't mean being passive. It means being clear-eyed and courageous. And let's make something crystal clear. Forgiving the same offense over and over again isn't strength. It's surrender. A Stoic doesn't hand over their inner peace to someone else's chaos. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But here's the key. It's not your responsibility to force truth onto those who refuse to accept it. Your responsibility is to recognize the truth when it keeps showing up again and again and again. Some people aren't apologetic, they're just comfortable. They don't want your forgiveness, they want your silence, they want access to you without changing their behavior. So what do? Stop arguing with their excuses. Stop dissecting their intentions, and start listening to what their actions have already told you, because behavior is the real truth. Patterns are the proof. And your peace, it's priceless. Let's settle this. Once and for all, setting boundaries is not cruelty. It's clarity, it's character, it's self-respect. But here's the challenge. If you were raised to always keep the peace, to accommodate, to be the bigger person, then the moment you say no, guilt hits like a wave. You start thinking, am I being too harsh? What if they get angry? What if I lose them? But here's the truth that rarely gets said out loud. If someone walks away because you enforced a healthy boundary, they were only around because you didn't have one in place to begin with. Let that sink in. So why is it so hard for us to set boundaries? Often it begins early. Maybe you were raised in an environment where love was conditional, where saying no made you the bad one, where setting limits meant being called selfish, ungrateful, or cold. And now as an adult, every time you try to stand your ground, it feels like betrayal. Not of them, but of yourself. But you're not betraying anyone. You're finally choosing not to betray yourself anymore. That's not cruelty. That's healing. Here's a real story. The dinner table boundary. James, a 42-year-old father of two, visited his aging mother every Sunday out of love and respect. But each week, without fail, she made cutting remarks about his appearance. Gaining weight again? You looked better when you were married. What happened to the old James? At first he laughed it off, then he avoided eye contact. Eventually, Sunday dinners turned into a source of dread instead of love. Until one day, he stood up in the middle of a meal and said, "Mom, I come here to spend time with you, not to be insulted. If this continues, I won't be joining these dinners anymore." She was stunned. She cried. She called him disrespectful. But the next Sunday, she didn't mention his body once. She asked about his children. She listened. That's the quiet power of a boundary. Sometimes it doesn't end a relationship. It begins a real one. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors, one with locks. Stoic wisdom reminds us we don't control others, we only control ourselves. But that doesn't mean we become passive. It means we become intentional. When someone shows you disrespect, the Stoic doesn't yell, he doesn't beg, he doesn't seek revenge. He calmly closes the door, turns the key and walks away, with dignity. Because peace isn't just the absence of noise, it's about who you allow in your space. Now, what do healthy boundaries sound like in everyday life? Like this. If you raise your voice, I'll end the conversation. If you keep arriving late, I'll stop waiting. If you disrespect me in front of others, I won't pretend everything is okay. These simple lines are not about control. They're about protecting your peace. And so, continuing from the previous truth, when you start setting clear boundaries, it's not about punishing others. It's about honoring yourself. These aren't ultimatums, they are facts. Truths you've come to learn. You're not being harsh. You're simply stating what you will and will not accept in your life anymore. And here's something you need to remember. The people who truly love you, they'll adjust. The ones who only used you, they'll react, sometimes loudly. But then comes the question that keeps many of us stuck. What if I lose them? Yes, you might. That's possible. But ask yourself this. Is it really a loss or a relief disguised as grief? If the only way someone stays in your life is by ignoring your boundaries, then that's not a relationship. That's an emotional, hostage situation. Because a true connection doesn't ask you to shrink, to stay silent, or to betray your truth just to maintain peace. It demands mutual respect, space, and above all, honesty. Yes, the fear is real. Yes, the guilt shouts loudly. But louder than both should be your inner voice whispering firmly, "I will not abandon myself just to make someone else feel comfortable." Here's the final truth. People don't get to treat you however they want and still have access to your life. You are not cruel for enforcing your worth. You are not cold for protecting your peace. You are not broken for saying, "Enough." Because boundaries are not rejection. They are protection. They are self-respect turned into action. And sometimes, boundaries are the most powerful act of love you can offer to yourself. Of course, we all want to believe the best in others. We want to give second chances. And when we love someone deeply, we want to believe that love alone can heal them. But here's the Stoic truth no one talks about. There's a thin, dangerous line between being supportive and being complicit, between compassion and enabling, and more often than we realize, what we call understanding is actually fear. Fear of conflict, fear of change, fear of walking away. It becomes the trap of quiet endurance. You keep forgiving, you keep explaining, you keep absorbing the damage and calling it love. But in truth, all you're doing is protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. And what happens when someone is shielded from consequence? They don't change, they don't reflect, they repeat. Because why would they evolve if nothing ever holds them accountable? Imagine this. You have an adult son. He borrows money constantly and never pays it back. He forgets birthdays, but expects gifts. He raises his voice when things don't go his way. And you say nothing, you justify it. He's just stressed. You hope he'll mature eventually. He just needs support, he has potential. But year after year, nothing changes. Now ask yourself, is he the problem? Or has your silence become permission? Enabling might look like love, but it's not real love. True compassion doesn't mean quietly cleaning up their messes. It means turning on the light and saying, "This behavior must stop, and I won't shield you from its consequences." But that's hard, isn't it? Because the moment you draw that line, they'll guilt you. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll cry. They'll say, "I thought you loved me." But Stoicism reminds us, love without truth is manipulation. Compassion without clarity is chaos. And enabling isn't kindness, it's fear dressed as care. And what does enabling truly cost? It costs your energy, your sleep, your boundaries, your dignity. You walk on eggshells. You silence your needs. You water yourself down to keep someone else comfortable. But the greatest cost? It robs them of the chance to grow. You're not helping them. You're delaying their transformation. You're removing the very friction they need in order to evolve. And ironically, the more you save them, the more they resent you. Because deep down, they know they're not truly facing life. So, what's the Stoic way forward? By saying, you're free to make your choices. But I am picking up from the previous reflection, when you stop protecting others from the consequences they bring upon themselves, you begin to protect yourself. I won't stop you if you choose to hurt yourself. That is your choice. But I won't let you hurt me. I care, but not at the cost of my own peace, because the strongest form of love isn't doing everything for someone else. It's not erasing yourself so they can shine. It's not endless forgiveness. True love is boundaries, set with a steady voice. It's truth spoken without apology. It's the quiet but firm resolve that says, I love you, but I also love myself. And so I refuse to disappear inside your chaos. Now is the time to reflect. Ask yourself, if nothing changes, what will this relationship look like in 5 years? Which parts of yourself will be lost just to hold on to someone unwilling to change? And a deeper question, is this love or fear disguised as sacrifice? The answer is your compass. The truth is, enabling someone is not kindness. It's slow self-abandonment. You were not born to carry the pain others create. Your job is not to save them from the consequences, but to not stand in their way. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to face their own reflection, without you blocking the view. Let things unfold. Let them learn. Let the consequences speak louder than any words you could say, and let yourself be free. You don't need their apology to let go. You just need your decision. There comes a moment in life when you stop waiting for them to understand, waiting for them to change, waiting for the apology you know will never come. And in that moment, you realize something that changes everything. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. Let that sink in. You don't need their approval to walk away. You don't need their understanding to set boundaries. You don't need their validation to be free. The weight of waiting. So many people live their entire lives in emotional limbo, holding their breath, hoping one day the person who hurt them will finally see. But hope without evidence is just a golden cage. While you wait, they keep living their life. They keep crossing lines. And you keep shrinking yourself to make space for their comfort. The Stoics would ask, why do you outsource your inner peace to the same person who stole it in the first place? And here is a true story about a man named Carl. Carl was a quiet man in his 70s, gentle and soft-spoken, the kind who would always have coffee ready in case a neighbor stopped by. When Carl's health declined, his grown son began visiting more often. At first, he said it was to help, and for a while, it was. But little by little, that help turned into control. Who could visit? What Carl was allowed to say? What money was spent on? Which decisions were permitted? Carl didn't want conflict. He didn't want to lose the son he loved. So he stayed, silent, for over a year, until one day he told a friend, I feel like a guest in my own home. He hadn't set boundaries. He hadn't said no. Not because he was weak, but because he thought love meant endless tolerance. But love does not mean accepting everything. Love without boundaries is not love. It's quietly erasing yourself, and Carl's story is not rare. It could be your story, mine. Everyone who has ever chosen comfort over truth because we were afraid to lose someone who was never really ours. Peace is not something given. It is a choice. Here's what Stoicism teaches us. You don't need a reason to protect your peace. You only need the courage to stop explaining it. You don't need to prove someone is toxic. You don't need to list their mistakes. You don't even need them to understand. Because sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is silence. A closed door. Building on the last page, when you begin to protect yourself instead of waiting for others to change, you embark on a courageous journey to freedom. Will you feel guilty? Yes, that's inevitable, because since childhood, you've been taught that choosing yourself is selfish, that setting boundaries makes you cold, that peace only comes after everyone else is okay. But pause and ask yourself, if they never change, what needs to change within you so you can find peace? That answer is your guiding light. This is your Stoic act of courage, the shift from emotional reaction to inner liberation. When you stop waiting for them to fix everything and start setting and protecting your boundaries, something remarkable happens. You no longer waste time rehearsing comebacks in your mind. You stop craving closure from people who don't even appreciate it. You stop living in emotional chaos and begin living in intentional truth. You walk lighter, you breathe deeper, you remember who you truly are, no longer weighed down by their dysfunction. And that quiet return to your center, that's what real power feels like. A final thought: you don't need their apology, you don't need their permission, you don't need the perfect timing, the perfect excuse, or the perfect words. You only need one thing: the courage to choose peace without asking anyone for approval. Let go of waiting. Let go of wishing. Let go of them. Because your peace is non-negotiable, not anymore. They lied to you, they disrespected you, they crossed the line again and again. And you stayed. You explained. You gave them time, space, and the benefit of every doubt. But now you see clearly. Kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. Forgiveness without consequences is a free pass. And love without self-respect is a slow erasure of yourself. The truth is, they may never apologize. They may never understand what they did. They may never see the version of you that broke silently. And that's okay, because now you don't need their permission. You don't need them to change. You only need one thing, and the choice to stop bleeding for people who never brought you a bandage. From this moment forward, you don't chase closure, you become it. You don't seek peace, you protect it. You don't repeat lessons, you enforce consequences, gently, quietly, permanently. So when someone asks, "But don't you think they deserve another chance?" you answer like a Stoic, "Maybe, but I deserve peace more." If this message resonated with you, if it awakened something in your soul, then this is not just another video. This is your line in the sand. Subscribe to Life Through Stoicism, where we don't chase noise, we cultivate clarity. Comment below. What's one boundary you're finally ready to honor? Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been strong for too long. And remember, mercy is not weakness, but neither is letting chaos have a place at your table. You've given enough.